This is my student ID. All right. So, today I'm going to be explaining all about the social disorganization theory. Let's take a step back in time to when the theory originated. In 1942, two criminology researchers from the Chicago School of Criminology, Clifford Shaw and Henry D. McKay, developed social disorganization theory through their research. The theory of social disorganization states a person's physical and social environment are primarily responsible for the behavioral choices that a person makes. At the core of social disorganization theory, it states that location matters when it comes to predicting illegal activity. Shaw and McKay noted that neighborhoods with the highest crime rates have at least three common problems: physical dilapidation, poverty, and higher levels of ethnic and culture mixing. Shaw and McKay claimed that delinquency was not caused at the individual level, but is a normal response by normal individuals to abnormal conditions. Social disorganization theory is widely used as an important predictor of youth violence and crime. The development of the social disorganization theory is closely tied to the phenomenal Polish migration to the US at the beginning of the 20th century. One of the foundational texts of the social disorganization theory is a book by University of Chicago sociologists W.I. Thomas and Florian Zanacki, titled The Polish Peasant in Europe and America, published in 1918 to 1920. The beginning of the 20th century saw a huge influx of migrants to America, many of whom eventually found work in the booming manufacturing industries of Chicago. It is estimated that almost 25% of the new immigrants to America at this time came from Poland. In fact, such was a magnitude of the wave of Polish immigration that Chicago soon became home to the third largest population of ethnic Poles after major cities in Poland such as Warsaw and Lodz. The Polish peasant in America and in Europe and America is today considered a classic text in sociology. The insights contained in this book lay the foundation of what is to be called the social disorganization theory. The authors emphasize the importance of the group, as defined in social sciences, to understand social change. According to them, members who become isolated from the group, in this case, the immigrant Polish community, tend to become vulnerable to deviant behavior and delinquency. So that is by definition what the theory is and some background on how it originated. But let's break this down to have it make a little bit more sense. We used a lot of big words. Now let's break this down into a simpler perspective of understanding what social disorganization theory is. So the theory stands on the ground that believing that the environment that someone is surrounded by, such as the neighborhood or area they live in, has more of an influence on a possible life of crime than the actual personality or characteristics of a person. Now, as a society, we are working to move past these generalizations of people and groups. There's been a lot of social push for us to take away the preconceptions we have about people of different races, cultures, and sexualities. But for the sake of this speech and explaining this theory, there will be some generalizations of people and groups and areas. These are the conversations we need to continue to have, so I will be discussing them in this speech today. So, oftentimes in lower income areas, there are those stereotypes of deteriorating families. You have those subpar schools with inadequate education, as well as a lack of resources to produce quality education for these children. There is also a lack of job security in these areas. So when there is a breakdown of these important elements in our lives, education, family, money, school, jobs, it becomes difficult to demonstrate what is called social control, which is the ability to regulate how we think and feel. So when a community is having a breakdown of these stable parts of their society, and that leads to a lack of social control, that directly links to a struggle in controlling deviant and criminal impulses. This theory directly relates to the topic we discussed in class last week about adapting to one's environment. There's a lot of issues socially within our society that make it very difficult for people to advance. There are a lot of instances of what I would call generational poverty. The child who was born into a family of lack probably had parents who were also born into lack, and so on before that. The people who are born into a so-called rough area find it hard to ever leave that rough area. And as a result, some people in a situation like this may feel the need to turn to crime in order to adapt. They may feel the need to get involved in the selling of drugs or laundering money in order to feel power and respect within their community, as well as be able to make money and advance their societal position. With the breakdown of family structures in these communities, gang activity also runs rampant. People who are experiencing a breakdown in their family structures look to gangs for acceptance, for a feeling of belonging and for family. And before they know it, they're roped into a whole entire life of crime. Overall, this theory shows that it is hard for people who are born into a rough area to be seen in society as possessing the same skills as somebody who's from a nice area. And we have a very broken society. Racism and hostility run rampant in our country, which is incredibly wrong. But unfortunately, those factors and people in less fortunate situations sometimes see crime as an only option to get ahead. Now, this doesn't excuse crime, and it doesn't excuse the crimes that are actively being committed in these communities. The fact that these individuals feel the need to commit crimes and live a life of crime in order to get ahead and in order to adapt does not make it right. Selling drugs, laundering money, and gang activity isn't okay, and I personally don't want that in my society, and I would assume other people don't want that in our society as well. But this is our reality with the current state of our country. This is our situation with the discretions in our neighborhoods and how society views the individuals coming from them. I think this theory brings about very thought-provoking questions and is definitely part of a much larger conversation we all need to continue to have about the discretions in our neighborhoods and the people coming from them. Thank you very much for your time and for listening to this speech and learning about the social disorganization theory with me. Thank you.